The media coverage surrounding the second Fort Hood shooting, I guess just to say the second since 2009, has been not that good. I don't think anybody's going to be surprised by that. Lots of speculation, lots of fear-mongering, all sorts of stuff. Megyn Kelly on Fox News, I'm not even going to bother to play the video from this, at the beginning of her show on the night of the shooting said that they're choosing not to identify the shooter, Ivan Lopez, the alleged shooter, Ivan Lopez. But then later in the show said, you can find out his name elsewhere, but it is a Hispanic, Latino sounding name. So that's actually really interesting, because when we look at the reasons not to provide the shooter's name, you would think that part of it is not to inflame people, not to get people, not to glorify the shooter is also a big thing. But if you start just talking about the shooter's race, where you find it okay and acceptable and important to state the shooter's race and ethnic background, but not their name, what are you really saying about race as a factor in this shooting? It was a very bizarre clip from Megyn Kelly. Also strange, on the Sean Hannity program that same night, Sean Hannity invites former Florida Tea Party Republican Congressman Allen West. Okay, Allen West is a guy that we covered extensively when he was a congressman. He has these just very strange stories in his background about how he treated his I don't know what's the opposite of superiors in the military, not his inferiors, but those ranked below him, and just a long history of really treating people poorly. And he went on Hannity to comment about the Fort Hood shooting, and he was able to do something amazing, which is Allen West, former Tea Party Republican congressman, was able to connect the Fort Hood shooting to President Obama's statements on Crimea. Watch this.
Let me go to the big picture about combating evil in our time. And this goes back to man-caused disasters, overseas contingency operations, that Major Hassan was workplace violence. Have we gotten too far away from 9/11 that we don't remember the impact of that day?
I believe that's a part of it, and I believe also we have a civilian leadership that does not want to recognize that an enemy exists. You know, you look at what is happening in the Crimea when the president says that Vladimir Putin is operating from a position of weakness.
Yeah.
So if you don't want to admit that there's evil, if you don't want to admit that there's an enemy, then you don't have the right type of security protocols in place.
And all right, it's good to see you. Colonel, I'll have you back.
Allen West is proof positive, ladies and gentlemen, that the military is way, way too lax in enlisting totally fringe, lunatic people and promoting them to ranks way beyond what would be considered reasonable given the statements that they make. It's sort of like when he talks about President Obama and how what he said is the same type of thing that is connected to the Fort Hood shooting. I'm thinking to myself, if a comet that was set into motion billions of years ago was on a trajectory to hit Earth and we found out about that tomorrow, someone on the right would figure out a way to tie it to President Obama. Very bizarre from Allen West. And for those who are saying, well, he's not saying that what President Obama said about Crimea caused the Fort Hood shooting, I agree with you. He's not saying that. But you're asked a question about Fort Hood. You're speaking about Fort Hood. And to even create this very roundabout logic trail that gets us back to what President Obama, the types of statements that people like President Obama make on Crimea, if not deliberately misleading, are completely irrelevant. I mean, just answer the question without criticizing President Obama. Is it even possible? How far does this go, where no matter what question you're asked, you figure out a way to criticize President Obama?